Episode 4. Rain blurred across the windshield, while the city passed in silence. Drove with both hands steady on the wheel, expression unreadable, perfect. Posture perfect control, but Hanuel noticed the tiny things, the way Harem's jaw stayed tense the entire drive, the way she gripped the steering wheel slightly too tightly, phone vibrated, the way she never once turned on the radio. And suddenly, Hanuel understood something. Harem got quieter when she was hurting, not louder. The hospital corridors felt painfully bright, soft voices everywhere, cold white lights, muted footsteps. Sora stood the second she saw them, eyes swollen from crying already. Harem? But Harem only nodded once. Controlled, stable, Their mother sat nearby, silently staring at the floor. Doctors moved around them constantly. Time passed strangely, slow and fast at the same time. Hanuel stayed beside Harem quietly the entire time, not touching her, just close enough. And Harem never asked her to leave. The doctor finally approached several hours later. Everyone stood immediately. One look at his face and the room changed. "I'm sorry." Silence, complete silence. Sora broke down instantly. Their mother covered her mouth with trembling hands. But Harem didn't move, didn't cry, didn't react visibly at all. She simply lowered her eyes once, then asked calmly, "What arrangements need to be made?" The doctor hesitated slightly. "We'll explain everything." And Hanuel's chest hurt suddenly, because Harem sounded more composed than everyone else in the room, like grief itself wasn't allowed to touch her yet. The following day blurred together endlessly. Phone calls, flowers, relatives arriving, paperwork, condolences. Through all of it, Harem stayed perfectly controlled. Black suit immaculate. Voice calm. Movements precise. People whispered constantly around her. "She's handling this so well. She's strong. She's exactly like her father." Hanuel heard every word, and somehow hated all of them, because nobody noticed how exhausted Harem looked whenever people turned away. The funeral hall was crowded, muted voices filled the air endlessly. White flowers everywhere. Incense. Rain tapping softly outside. Harem stood beside her family, greeting relatives one after another, bowing politely, thanking people calmly, accepting condolences perfectly, too perfectly, watching. Hanuel stayed nearby quietly through all of it. Every now and then, Harem's fingers tightened slightly around her sleeves. Tiny, barely visible, but enough. And every time, Hanuel noticed. Late into the evening, Sora finally broke down completely, crying openly now in one of the side rooms. Immediately, Harem moved toward her. No hesitation. She held Sora tightly while her sister cried against her shoulder. "It's okay." Soft voice, steady voice. "Even now, even like this." Harem comforted everyone else first. Hanuel watched quietly from the doorway, and suddenly understood her differently. Harem wasn't cold. She was carrying everything alone because she thought she had to. The funeral finally ended late at night. Relatives slowly disappeared one by one. The building emptied. The silence afterward felt unbearable. Harem thanked the final guest calmly, bowed politely, waited until the doors closed. Only then did her shoulders finally lower slightly, just slightly. Hanuel saw it immediately. The exhaustion, the crack in the control, but Harem still said nothing, still stayed composed. The drive home was silent. No music, no conversation, only rain and headlights reflecting across wet roads. Hanuel glanced toward Harem several times, still composed, still expressionless, too expressionless. And somehow, that scared her more than crying would have. The apartment felt painfully empty when they entered. No voices, no relatives, no distractions, just silence. Harem removed her shoes slowly, placed her keys down carefully. then stood completely still near the entrance. Kenul watched her quietly. Harem. No answer. Then softly, you should rest. Still nothing. And suddenly, Haram laughed once. Quiet. Empty. I didn't even answer his last call. The words came out flat. Detached. Hanuel's chest tightened instantly. Haram. I saw it ringing. A pause. I ignored it because I was busy. Still calm. Too calm. Then finally, her voice cracked. Tiny. But enough. And everything shattered after that. Haram suddenly covered her eyes with one hand sharply, like she physically couldn't hold herself together anymore. Her breathing broke unevenly. Once. Twice. Then completely. And finally, she cried. Not quietly. Not elegantly. Real crying. Painful crying. The kind someone holds back too long until it destroys them anyway. Hanuel moved immediately. No hesitation. She held Haram tightly before she could collapse completely, and Haram actually held on to her. Hard. I should have answered him, Haram whispered brokenly. Again and again, I should have picked up. Anuel's own eyes burned instantly hearing it. It wasn't your fault. But Haram shook her head helplessly against her shoulder. And for the first time, Hanuel saw her completely defenseless. No walls. No control. Just grief. And it broke her heart completely. That night, neither slept properly. Haram stayed curled toward Hanuel silently beneath the blankets. Exhausted beyond words. Every now and then, Hanuel felt her breathing shake slightly again. Quiet crying she was trying to hide now. So Hanuel stayed awake too, one hand gently in her hair, holding her carefully through every silence. And for once, Haram let someone take care of her. Hanuel woke first, and immediately realized something was wrong. Haram was still asleep. Deeply asleep. Too deeply. She stepped closer, carefully, then froze. Haram's skin was burning. Haram. No response. Hanuel touched her forehead again. Definitely fever. High fever? Probably exhaustion. Stress. Days without proper sleep. Grief finally hitting physically too. Haram, wake up. Slowly. Haram opened her eyes slightly. Disoriented. What time is it? You have a fever. I'm fine. You're literally burning alive. I'm not. Her voice sounded weak. Rough. Completely unlike usual. And strangely, that softness made Medili's chest ache again. For the first time, the roles shifted completely. Helleram stayed in bed while Hanuel moved around the apartment quietly. Medicine. Water. Cold towel? Soup. You should rest, Hanuel said firmly while placing medicine beside her. I have work. You're sick. I'll survive. You're dramatic when you're exhausted. I'm not dramatic. Hanuel almost smiled faintly, even sick. Haram still argued calmly. By evening, the fever became worse. Haram drifted in and out of sleep beneath the blankets. Usually composed posture gone entirely now. Hair messy, expression tired, vulnerable. Hanuel sat beside her reading, quietly while changing the cold towel against her forehead. Occasionally, every time Haram woke briefly, her eyes searched for Hanuel first, instinctively, and every single time. Hanuel stayed. The apartment was completely silent now. Only soft rain against the windows. Dim city lights slipping through the curtains. Hanuel sat beside Haram for a long time after she fell asleep, watching quietly, making sure the fever finally started going down. Haram shifted slightly beneath the blankets,
restless,
even asleep. Then softly, Hanuel, barely audible, half asleep. Hanuel leaned closer immediately. I'm here. Haram's eyes opened slightly, unfocused from exhaustion and fever. For a moment, she looked confused, then relieved. Stay. The word came quieter this time, smaller, more vulnerable, and Kenyul's chest tightened painfully because Haram never asked for anything. Yet she kept asking for her. Without another word, Haniel slid carefully beneath the blankets beside her. The bed dipped softly, warmth immediately filling the cold space between them. For a second, neither moved. Then, slowly, Haram shifted closer instinctively, like her body searched for comfort before her mind could stop it. Haniel's breath caught slightly, because this wasn't accidental anymore. Carefully, she opened one arm slightly, an unspoken question, and Haram moved into it without hesitation. Silence. Soft breathing. Rain outside. Haram rested against her quietly now, forehead near Hanuel's collarbone, one hand weakly holding the fabric of her shirt, and Haniel held her gently, one arm around her waist, the other brushing slowly through soft, dark hair. No tension, no confusion, no pretending, just warmth, just comfort. For the first time since everything happened, Haram's breathing finally steadied completely.
Relaxed.
Safe. Half asleep, she murmured softly against Hanuel's shoulder. Thank you. Kenyul closed her eyes briefly, holding her a little closer. You don't have to thank me, because taking care of Haram no longer felt like obligation, or kindness, or responsibility. It felt natural, like her place had somehow become right here, holding her together quietly in the dark. And somewhere between exhaustion, grief, and warmth, Haram fell asleep fully in her arms, while Haniel stayed awake a little longer, listening to the rain, feeling the steady warmth against her chest, and realizing there was no going back anymore, because this no longer felt like something temporary, or fake, or accidental. It felt dangerously close to love. Rain tapped softly against the university windows. The lecture hall stayed unusually quiet that afternoon. Haram stood at the front as always. Perfect posture, calm voice, controlled expression, but Hanuel noticed immediately. She seemed irritated today,
Sharper.
colder, especially whenever certain students spoke. Professor Lee Min-ju asked casually near the front row, could this case also apply to corporate liability disputes? Haram answered professionally, yes, but only under limited circumstances. Short, flat, done. Meanwhile, Kenyul quietly watched from the back, because Haram had looked toward her immediately after answering, like checking if she was paying attention. Again, and honestly, that behavior was becoming suspicious lately. Most students slowly left after the lecture ended, conversations filling the hallway outside, rain continuing softly. Kenyul stayed behind, organizing her notes while Haram reviewed documents near the desk. The room eventually became quiet, only the two of them remaining. Then Haram spoke first without looking up. Your midterm paper improved. Kenyul glanced toward her. That almost sounded like praise. It was an observation. Same thing. A brief silence followed. Comfortable? Then unexpectedly, the conversation drifted naturally, away from academics, away from professionalism. You stopped sleeping properly again, Kenyul said quietly while closing her notebook. Haram finally looked up slightly. You noticed? You get quieter when you're tired. A pause. Then softly. You also skip meals when stressed. Haram stared at her silently now, because those were details nobody else noticed, nobody else paid attention to. Meanwhile, Haniel didn't realize how intimate the moment suddenly felt. Rain outside. Empty classroom. Their voices softer than usual. Then Haram asked quietly, when did you become this observant? Haniel smiled faintly. When did you become easy to read? And for the first time all day, Haram almost smiled too. The moment broke once they stepped outside. Students filled the hallways again, noise returning immediately. Minzu appeared near the stairs, waving excitedly toward Hanuel. Kenyul. Kenyul looked over automatically. Minju walked beside her naturally, while talking about an upcoming project presentation. comfortable as always. Too comfortable. Then, while laughing, she grabbed lightly onto Hanuel's arm, only for a second. Casual, meaningless. But across the hallway, Harem saw it, and something in her expression changed instantly. Cold, tight, unreadable. Hanuel noticed immediately this time, and suddenly, everything clicked together. The apartment stayed quiet after they returned home. Too quiet. Hanuel sat on the couch, removing her earrings slowly while Harem moved around the kitchen preparing coffee. Every movement controlled, almost mechanical. That only confirmed Hanuel's suspicions more. Finally, she spoke. "You've been irritated all evening." "I'm fine." Liar. Silence. Harem set the coffee cup down harder than necessary. "I said I'm fine." Hanuel leaned back against the couch calmly. "No, you're jealous." The room went completely still. Harem turned toward her slowly, expression sharpening immediately. "Don't say ridiculous things. Then explain your mood." "There's nothing to explain." Harem, a pause, then softer. "You've been acting like this every time someone gets too close to me." Another silence. Heavy now. Dangerous. Harem looked away first, which already answered enough. Hanuel stood slowly from the couch, walking closer carefully, watching her. "You hate when people touch me." Not a question, a realization. Harem's jaw tightened immediately. "I dislike unnecessary familiarity." Hanuel almost laughed. "That's your defense?" "No, seriously. You sound insane." That made Harem snap slightly. "Because I don't like it." Finally, real emotion. The apartment fell silent again. Hanuel stared at her quietly, heart suddenly beating faster. Then Harem continued, softer this time, more honest, more dangerous. "I don't like strangers touching you. With Minju especially." Hanuel blinked once. "You're actually jealous, yes." The answer came immediately this time. No denial anymore, and somehow that confession changed the entire atmosphere instantly. Neither moved away. Months of staring, jealousy, late-night conversations, everything collapsing together at once. Then quietly, Hanuel asked, "Why?" Harem looked at her silently for a long moment, like deciding whether to destroy the final barrier between them. Then finally, "Because I want you." The words barely left her mouth before Hanuel kissed her. Fast, impulsive, desperate. Harem froze briefly in shock, then immediately kissed her back harder, hands gripping tightly onto Hanuel's waist, pulling her impossibly closer. The kiss became messy almost instantly, months of restraint breaking apart violently. Hanuel's fingers tangled into Harem's dark hair, while Harem pushed her gently against the wall, breathing uneven now. Control completely gone, and honestly, neither of them wanted to stop. The apartment lights stayed dim, rain still falling outside softly. Harem kissed her again, slower this time, like she was finally allowing herself something forbidden, something she spent months suppressing. Meanwhile, Hanuel realized something terrifying. Harem wasn't just attracted to her. She loved her deeply enough to lose control over it. And somehow, that realization only made Hanuel want her more. "You really kept all this hidden?" Hanuel whispered against her lips. "I tried." Hanuel smiled faintly. "You failed." "Yes." And somehow, that honesty felt more intimate than the kiss itself. The bedroom stayed quiet except for soft breathing and rain outside, city lights spilling faintly through the curtains. Their closeness no longer felt tense now, only consuming, overwhelming, wanted. Every touch carried months of suppressed feelings beneath it. Every kiss slower now. Deeper. More vulnerable. Harem looked at Hanuel carefully, like she still couldn't believe this was real. Meanwhile, Hanuel touched her gently, like she was finally seeing the real person, beneath all the control and distance. And somewhere during the night, the line between emotional and physical intimacy disappeared completely. Not rushed, not careless, just two people finally giving in to feelings that had already existed for far too long. Morning sunlight filled the room softly. Warm, quiet, peaceful. Hanyul woke first, then slowly realized Haram was holding her in sleep, unconsciously, one arm around her waist tightly, like even asleep. She refused to let go. Kenyul stared at her silently for a moment, heart impossibly soft now, because this version of Haram, relaxed, emotionally open, vulnerable, nobody else in the world would ever see. Then, slowly, Haram woke up too. Still sleepy, still holding her. Their eyes met quietly, neither speaking immediately. Then softly, Kenyul smiled. Still jealous? Haram closed her eyes briefly in embarrassment. Don't start. Kenyul laughed quietly. And this time, Haram smiled too. Small, real, beautiful. Outside, the world continued normally, completely unaware that inside one quiet apartment, two people had just crossed a line neither of them could ever come back from.